my windows.
All right. Hello, everyone watching out through our YouTube Live. Welcome to our panel discussion, Thoughts on Black is King. I'm really excited to have three incredible panelists to talk about what was really like an incredible visual, aesthetic, epic album. So I'm just going to do quick introductions of everybody who's joining me today, and then we'll get started with a couple basic questions to get right into talking about Black is King. So we're starting with Cameron. Cameron Granger came up in Cleveland, Ohio, in the Euclid area. His work explores his place in and role as a product of American history and its media. In 2019, Cameron was a Bemis Center artist in residence, where his work explored music and media, using video as sculptural material to activate the viewer within installations and conduct research on Black representation in film. Other recent projects include 10 Tones Down at the Museum of Contemporary Photography in Chicago, Pearl, a body of collaborative works with his mother, Sandra, and A Library for You, a traveling community library. So thank you for being here, Cameron. Yay.
You super hyped.
All right. Brooke Obie in one of my corners. It's different for everyone. So Wave High Brooke is the award-winning author of the novel Book of Addis, Cradled Embers, which won the 2018 Accra International Book Festival Awards Independent Writers Award, the 2017 Phyllis Wheatley Book Award for First Fiction, and the 2017 Black Caucus of the American Library Association Award for Self-Published Fiction. While serving as the managing editor for the Black film television site Shadow and Act from 2018 to 2020, she was named one of the Roots 100's most influential African Americans in 2019 for her work debunking the movie Green Book and highlighting Hollywood's tendency to whitewash Black stories. So welcome, Brooke. And if anyone hasn't read her piece on Green Book, it was amazing. It's on Shadow and Act, and it really it was the beginning of this conversation about the film Green Book and whitewashing of Hollywood. So really pivotal piece. And then last but not least, Maya Taylor is a highly sought after choreographer and movement director based in Los Angeles and New Orleans. Named as one of Dance Magazine's 25 to Watch in 2020, her work is visible in multiple creative and commercial domains, ranging from television and film to fashion and stage performance. In 2019, Maya was nominated for an MTV VMA for Best Choreography for a collaboration on Solange Knowles Almeida. And Maya has made distinct contributions to the incredible visions of artists such as SZA and St. Vincent, to name a few. In commercial television and film, Maya's most recent credits include TNT's Claws, Fox's Filthy Rich, and Netflix's The Lovebirds. So welcome, Maya. And I am Diana Martinez, the artistic director of Film Streams. Thank you all so much for being here with me today. So I wanted to start by asking you all some basic questions about how you approach watching something like Black is King. Like Beyonce's visual albums that we've gotten so far, there's a lot happening, so you kind of know that that's what to expect, but you're all coming from different disciplines as well. So I kind of wanted to get to know kind of your approach to looking at artistic visual work. So Maya, I wanted to start with you and just ask the question of, what is the difference for those of us who don't know, who aren't dancers, who aren't choreographers? What is the difference between choreography for the stage and choreography for a music video or for film? And then to you, what makes really great kind of music video choreography?
Well, for the stage, if you're thinking of a dance company or play, Broadway, theater, you have, from beginning to end, you could say, I'll speak specifically towards a dance company, and you'll have 20 to 30 minutes to create a piece that is specifically coming from you, me, the choreographer, and it's not a collaboration so much as a music video is. When you're on set for music videos, it's not just your vision. You are part of a huge collaboration of, the director, creative director, producers, and most importantly, the artist that you're creating for. So it's just, you know, it's two different hats for sure. I love them both a lot, but I do love the music video film world more because of that collaboration and all the different voices. And it's kind of my job as the choreographer to take all of that. And then if there's movement that's needed, I have to interpret every single voice. And it's like, it's a huge challenge, but it's something I love so much because, you know, you get to add your voice to that. And then just for the stage, like that's a little bit more personal to everything I do is personal, but for choreography for the stage and like concert dance, that's really personal. I usually tell like my own story through that movement, and then it's interpreted through dancers or through theater. But I would say that what makes a great music video is that collaboration and is taking like what the artist wants to present themselves as, and you are part of that voice. And you know, you get to, I think also with choreography, there's also movement direction. So it's not just a 5, 6, 7, 8 of, you know, movement that you come up with in the studio. I think a lot of the things that you see in Black is King, there's like these individual moments that Beyonce had on her own that were clearly like movement direction or her. And so I think that I love being on set when things like that happen with the different artists that I work with, because you're just like, it's encouragement to them of like, yes, that looks good. Maybe you should try this the next time, but it's also them just performing. So yeah, it's two very different things, even though dance kind of brings them together.
Mm-hmm. Follow-up question that maybe I should know the answer to, but when you're creating a music video, are you choreographing from beginning to end? Do you know which shots or like group shots will be filmed? Are you kind of preparing for them to excerpt from different parts of the choreography? How much do you know on your end as to like what the final product will look like?
I think that it's my job to be ready for anything. So specifically like for the video that we did for Solange, like for Almeida, we, you know, like she would give me prompts kind of to come up with to give to like for different scenes. But it really varies for different artists. Like sometimes like the work I did with St. Vincent, that was a live performance, but we choreographed that beginning to end because the whole thing was going to be filmed for Ellen. So you have something like that where it's a complete dance, or you might have these little different pockets of movement. And so I'm constantly like, I always have a notebook on set with me. I like taking notes all the time and like breaking things down of like, okay, an artist might ask for movement here, here, and here, and then I have to translate that to the dancers. And sometimes I will have, you know, hours to do that, or sometimes I'll literally have 2 minutes to do it. So it's just a lot of preparation, and you just never know, because sometimes an artist will ask you, you know, to come up with movement on the spot, and they either like it or they don't like it. And so you just kind of have to really go with the flow. So it just depends on what they want at the time. But sometimes you do get a lot of preparation, which is great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Brooke, I wanted to ask you, right, coming from the different end, from the kind of not production end, or from the film critic, from the film analysis end, how do you approach something like Beyonce's kind of visual album that is so music video focused, it's edited in a specific way? Do you approach that differently than watching like a narrative feature film? Do you treat them similarly? Like, what's your process of kind of like watching and then distilling it to, you know, write a piece or something like that?
Right. So based on experience, because this, you know, because of Lemonade, we've seen her do a narrative. We've seen her have a visual album that is telling us a story. So I'm not approaching it like I would, you know, if I had just watched B-Day or something like that, that also had a video element to every single song. So I just went into Black is King expecting to go beyond Lemonade, honestly, you know, because she pretty much set the standard for what a visual album should be, and that it should tell a story. And all of the visual elements, all of the other elements that come along with that choreography, all of that, it should be in service to that story. So, you know, since that is, as a critic, as I'm looking to analyze a piece like Black is King, that's what I'm looking for, that narrative thread that went through that, and I found it. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and in case people haven't seen, Brooke's piece on Black is King was published on Esquire.com today, and it's a really beautiful distillation of the narrative arc. It's so clear. And that's what I was wondering when I read your piece. Like, it was very clearly written as though you were watching a narrative feature. And I think a lot of the other pieces I had seen were using or were treating Black is King as kind of discrete music videos that had kind of all been put together. And you really saw this one work.
Absolutely.
Cool. Cameron, and I wanted to ask you a little question about the artistic process, because a lot of your work is quite autobiographical, if that's correct. And so I was wondering that in your artistic process, are you thinking about the audience or the reception of your work as you're making it?
Yeah, all the time. It's something I think about a lot. You know, one of the things that struck me in Black is King was when Beyonce says, "To live without reflection for so long might make you wonder if you truly exist." And I think when you're working in a medium like film that is such like a one-to-one representation of reality, you have to be very careful with the images that you're making, especially as Black folks. I feel like, you know, we see so many violent images of us every day, and if they're not violent, if they're not showing physical violence, they're showing some other kind of violence. And I always want to be very aware of the things that I'm putting out there, because, you know, a lot of these spaces that my work is being showed in aren't going to be, like, it's not built with Black folks in mind, you know? So yes, I think about it a lot. And that's why I think part of my instinct has been to lean towards, you know, speaking always very first and foremost about my own story or my own communities, like my own personal communities, or, you know, my upbringing. You know, that's why I work with my mother, you know, who is beyond myself, but also still very closely tied to myself. And, you know, I work with a lot of friends and homies and things like that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's just something I try and be very careful and aware of, you know.
Okay,
Sorry.
I won't ask my follow-up to that, because I think that actually really does lead to a conversation that I kind of want to have about, like, you know, the image or the persona that Beyonce has been kind of building up for herself. But I think before we get there, I want to just talk about your first impressions of this particular work. And then I think we can kind of extrapolate out to this piece of work in the context of Beyonce's body of work. Mm. So first impressions of Black is King, what did we think?
I loved it. I'll go first. I loved it. As I had mentioned, the first day I watched it, it took me hours to watch it, because I kept pausing and then rewinding, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, what is this? Who is this? Like, there are a lot of artists that I did not know, and I looked them up right away. And I think that why it took me so long, and dancers and choreographers, and it was just so powerful to me. And then, you know, the next two times I watched it all the way through without stopping, and I just enjoyed it. It was so energizing and powerful, and it was really inspiring. Like, I think it's the best work that she's done. I think it's the best work she's done for me. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Brooke. Yeah.
I also enjoyed it this time around. There were parts of it, though, that, you know, people had already begun kind of criticizing Beyonce for, you know, using African imagery. It was just kind of generalized. It wasn't, you know, specific, like it was kind of a hodgepodge of different cultures. So I kind of took that criticism, I was looking at it with that eye. While I was viewing in some of the things that were kind of bothering me, like the Mood Forever video, you know, she's on a Bentley, it's very, you know, the kind of capitalist imagery. And then also during Brown Skin Girl with the debutante ball, you know, it's a very classist kind of, you know, organization for, usually light-skinned girls to be a part of. So my first impressions were to be kind of pushing back on that. And it really did take a second and third look at it to really understand that those parts that were kind of giving me pause were meant to give me pause, and that there was another message that she was trying to convey in there. And once I caught on to that in the second viewing, I was really on board with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cam?
Yeah, I also I enjoyed it as well. Like I watched it several times. I think, and I talked about this just among ourselves earlier. Like I don't think there's anyone else on the planet, and never has been anyone on the planet that could pull together a body of a body of work on a scale like this, as like to the point as just well made as this. Like I think, Beyonce's been in a league of her own for a very long time, and I think this really shows that really well. And I think, it's not necessarily my favorite piece of work from her. I still really love something like Homecoming more. Mm-hmm. And I think what gives me pause is those capitalist, kind of capitalist drapings for a lot of not a lot of the scenes, but some of the scenes in there. Really give me pause and make me wonder what the lengths that we as Black Americans can go when we talk about the diaspora, and so that's something I'm still trying to reconcile with, and I think it's going to take a couple more rewatches for me to work through in the way that Brooke mentioned as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Here's how I worked through it.
Yeah, please.
So at that point in the film, it's basically like the Hakuna Matata scene in Lion King. The prince has ran away from his community. He is in the wilderness. He's got, essentially the mood, sleep. What are those? Mask on his eyes. And it's essentially like he's in this dream. Like this kind of escapist fantasy that happens when you're disconnected from your community. When you are elevated to that level of wealth, to that level of exorbitant wealth, you are not in community with other people. You have no worries. Like that's Hakuna Matata, And so at that point in the film, that's what he's experiencing. He wants to get away. He wants to get away from responsibility, all of his duty, all those things. He wants to be, living this lavish life. And he's actually taken out of that in order to get back to go back home. Because you'll see when he gets married, there's no giant wedding party, or there's no luxury around. I mean, the rest of the film is very grounded. There's so many shots. I'm not sure what locations they were throughout the continent, but they were very down to earth places, hair salons, all those kinds of things. And so I think that was kind of a separation. Like this is how we get away from community. And when we get back to community, when we get back to an African way, which was to be concerned with the collective, to be family oriented, to be concerned with how everybody in the community is doing, you're not going to see those same, you're not going to be in a Bentley. Like that's not going to be a part of your reality. That's not going to be a desire that you have. So that's what I took from it. Those things that were very towards the beginning, like when he's in the den with Scar and there's gambling and there's gold and all that, like those are all things that were letting us know that he was going down the wrong path. And you don't see those again for the rest of the film. So that's how I reconciled it.
Yeah. I enjoy that interpretation. Mm-hmm. I have a question, follow-up. We're just going to have to talk about Beyonce as a whole now. Because I think, Cam, I also, so I watched it with my partner and we discussed it afterwards. And I think it was really hard for me to separate Mood Forever in particular from something like Apeshit or you know, some of these like other like music videos with her and Jay in particular. And I think Brooke, like you have a line in your piece, devoted capitalist, like Jay-Z. Like it's very like that is the project, not just of the persona, but seemingly of the work. And you know, as a person of color, like I completely understand like that need to create generational wealth, to be financially secure for generations, which like our family or our parents or were probably not, or our grandparents were probably not. But it also is just like, is the project about like incorporating people of color into capitalism? And I've been reading pieces about Black is King, and like a lot of the critics are like, this is the piece that feels the most Beyonce, that feels the least connected to this Lion King story, to kind of maybe the rest of the imagery that's about Beyonce as a matriarch, Beyonce as a goddess or a deity, Beyonce as a kind of biblical figure. And so, yeah, I was just wondering, like, how do you, I don't know, but like, how do we like reconcile that part of the image and the persona?
No, she's definitely a capitalist. You know, she is. I would love for, we have different, I think, political understandings and political goals. You know, I don't think that there really is any reconciling like kind of who she is and what she stands for, but she has created a work of art that I found to be very rooted in decolonization, particularly when it comes to Black masculinity. That's what my piece on Esquire is all about, how it's pretty much a blueprint for how Black men, specifically Black American men, can decolonize from the colonized version of masculinity that, you know, has been thrust upon them and us, you know, as a result in the community because of slavery and colonization. So I think her heart is for Black people. I really do. I think she believes that the more billionaires are created that are Black, the better we'll all be. So I think we just got to keep encouraging her to go a little bit more to the left, like a lot more to the left, like completely to the left. Yeah. But I think she's on the right track. I think her heart is in the right place as far as like she wants the best for Black people. I think we disagree what that is.
Yeah, and that's what I think is always so difficult for me, especially because, you know, I am coming more from like the film criticism and the film analysis. Like I'm not really like an art maker at all, you know, Maya or Cam, the way you guys are. So for me, like I always, you know, when I slip into that, like, you know, am I critiquing the work or am I critiquing the person? Like it always feels like kind of weird. And like in film criticism and literature, like you're taught not to do that. Right. But then I also can't escape the fact that like there are artists who maybe ask us to make that illusion, right? Who slip and kind of blur the boundaries between themselves and the work so that it's so much easier to like extrapolate who they are from the work or make assumptions about who they are from the work. But it does feel weird on my end all the time. But it's also something that, especially with Beyonce's work, like I'm always thinking about.
I mean, I think probably, I don't want to
discuss.
I think unless you're probably like a director for a commercial, I think all the work that you do is going to be personal, right? You're going to, you know, put your heart and soul into it. And she dedicated this to her son, Sir Carter. So I think that she has a very specific message that she wants for her children, a legacy that she wants to leave for her children. So I think it's totally fine for us to take, you know, what she's presented to us over the years as we're analyzing this piece of art.
Mm-hmm. For you all, first, like kind of like siloing off of the like message, like what was the takeaway aesthetically? Like what struck you most visually about what Beyonce was doing? Or what the Beyonce and the other directors of the film were doing?
I think for me, it was speaking from the dance perspective of it also, but just this combination of like being in nature or being in this like beautiful architecture and then There's in the New York Times, like Wesley Morris talked about how like this this film specifically, like we actually had time to like look at what was happening, and I agreed with him that sometimes things moved so quickly in past videos that you couldn't like enjoy, and I feel like I was able to sit and like watch whichever director, whichever choreographer, the designers, everything together, but just to see to give us that moment to take in that like black is beautiful, and a lot of people don't feel that way, and a lot of black people don't always feel that way and haven't been made to feel that way. And I left every scene, like even the scenes we're talking about, the debutante scene and Mood Forever and everything, just feeling like it's okay to be who you are in this world. Like that was something with all of that combined, like whether you want to be crazy and wear feathers or just in like a simple dress or just even movement wise doing something simple or doing this like complicated choreography. It was just like I left it feeling like it's okay to be whichever version within the like 12 something pieces that they did. That's how I left it. It was just like very enriching to me, but I get, and also challenging too, because of what we were just talking about before. But I felt like even though you didn't know who, like for me watching it, I didn't always know who choreographed every part, and I didn't always know who except for one part. I knew one of the choreographers. I was like, he did that. But for the rest, I was like, it felt like one voice kind of, but then you saw like different nuances between everything. So I know that probably like took a lot of work, but I left it feeling like, oh my gosh, this is like just all encompassing. It's my dancer movement with the experience.
Yeah, and I think for me, like that's one aspect where I see the project that Brooke's talking about of decolonization like happening in the movement itself. Like the way that in the last few years Beyonce has moved away from a kind of like traditional pop Western choreography to like incorporating African movement and African dance, and dancers who look different than like American dancers.
Absolutely. I think the biggest note that I'd made is like, over the years she's had the same core group of dancers. Really, like you could pick them out of a video and they're absolutely incredible. For me, what was so beautiful about this is the bodies. Like there were so many different bodies that were represented, old to young to just everything. And I like got goosebumps like just thinking about that, because does not always happen in dance. In TV and film, as we all know, it can be one body and one look, and that was just so beautiful to see as a dancer and choreographer, is that like every body can dance, and that was really nice to see throughout this whole thing.
Yeah. Any visuals that struck you, Brooke or Cam?
I'm with that was really it. The body diversity was so exciting for me to see, because we didn't really get a lot of that on Lemonade. Also kind of, there was a little bit of a paper bag situation in Lemonade about the people who get to sit on the porch. And so to see so many dark-skinned Black women as well, and dark-skinned Black men in this as well, I was really struck by that, really excited by that. I could go with even more body diversity next time around. Like I hope that's something. But yeah, having the oldest Black woman bodybuilder featured in the video Power, I thought that was amazing. Having Blue Ivy in there, I thought that was amazing. So yeah, just being able to create work that you can incorporate your children into, I think just has to be the most fulfilling thing, because I imagine that's really what she's doing this for anyway, is to provide some sort of message for her children that they can carry with it. So to be able to incorporate your kids into the work, I just thought that was really great. So those are the main things. But I will say in the debutante scene, which is a space that is very much, you cannot participate in a cotillion in, you know, in a Black cotillion, if you are darker than a brown paper bag, if you don't have this amount of money, to have a dark-skinned little girl walking into this place and to see all these debutantes frozen like in history, and to have them come to life and they are brown skin like her, and she is dancing in the center of it and being the center of it. I really thought that was just such a powerful message, like just to take back, you know, that history and say that all spaces, like there's no spaces that should be excluded to the beauty of Blackness in all of its shades. I don't necessarily think that we should be fighting to be in places that are that classist, but you know, I thought the message behind it, yeah, that really struck me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would just echo what both Maya and Brooke have been saying about the wide range of Black folks on screen. I don't know if I've seen anything like that. Like, I can't pull anything from my mind that like immediately that's definitely on this scale. I think that's incredible and amazing and like very moving to see, especially like working in film and art. Yeah, that was really special. I also was really into the emphasis on water in the film as well. You know, there's the song "The Nile," and even in the beginning, there's, you know, talking about callback to the Moses story, the baby in the water. And she also talks in, I can't remember which song it was, but about returning to the water from the dust. And, you know, I've been revisiting Christina Sharp's book In the Wake, and she talks a lot about this idea of something called wake work. And that's the work Black folks do to process the, you know, unresolved, kind of ever unfolding trauma of the transatlantic slave trade. And talks about literally being in the wake of the boat, the wake of the ship, in the waves of the water, the wake of that. You know, how in a way, like, so much of ourselves have been born from the water and are still kind of being rooted out and parsed through still in that water today. And it was very, again, really moving for me to see such an emphasis on that. And, you know, the song "The Nile" happening during the funeral from the boss. Yeah, I'm very into that. And again, it's still, like, I'm still trying to think through exactly what she was getting at in it, but I don't doubt that there's a lot of that in there, you know. I think her bag, like, she's just very deep in her bag, and her bag is super big and very vast. And it's like, I'm always very amazed at just how you know, obviously, like, she's working with a large team too, but it's really like, it's something very special to be able to pull all that in, you know.
And it's very special for someone to be able to coordinate and do all that, for me, like, without any leaks of any footage, or like just the secrecy that needs to happen around a project of that scale. Indeed. Right? Like, they're filming in all these locations in and around Africa, right? With a lot of different collaborators. Like, you would think that there would be, you know, someone in that network who like lets something slip even by accident, but it's like such a coordinated effort that it really is, it's admirable. Like, the amount of control she has over her work, even to that end, is fascinating. But no, go ahead.
Oh, I was saying, I would not be like, want to be the one that got caught leaking like a Beyonce project.
You don't want to be the one who breaks that NDA, for sure. So for those of you who are watching on YouTube Live, we will have a few minutes at the end for some questions. If you want to start putting those in the chat now, our moderator, Angie, is looking over those, and she'll let me know any questions that come through. So if anything that we're talking about brings up any questions, please drop those in the chat. The next question that I had was kind of along the lines of, you know, this being a Beyonce project, because it is also a kind of reimagining of The Lion King, right? Of Disney's The Lion King. So there was a question I had at some point when I was watching it, and I was like, who is the audience for this? Right? It's on Disney Plus. It's a new version of The Lion King, but it's definitely, I think, aesthetically, in terms of its message, Beyonce production, right? What is this project? Like, who is this for? Like, as a commercial product, if that makes sense. Did you guys even like have the same question while you were watching it? Does it not matter?
I didn't really question it while I was watching it. I thought it was pretty clear to me that, you know, and I think it kind of goes back to what Cam was saying about the water. I thought that was a really great callback. You know, this is an African-American story. This is an African-American woman who's trying to connect to the continent any way that she can, in the way that, you know, Black Americans who are descendants of enslaved people are forced to do. You know, we have to take whatever we can because we can't actually know for certain. And if you do try to get your DNA, the government is going to sell it to whoever that billionaire is that just bought all of our DNA. So, you know, forget that. Pick a place in the continent where you want to connect to and just learn that history and like claim it, you know? And so I think as I was watching it, I was surprised by what, you know, Disney allowed to happen, because it was a very, very pro-Black, anti-white supremacy story. And, you know, The Lion King is not really an African story to begin with. And I saw the reactions of the many Africans who were involved in this and how their families reacted. So I know that it was for them as well. And they were so excited to be a part of it and to have all of these people from across the diaspora whose music maybe other people didn't know beforehand, now getting this a second bite at the apple, because we did have the album last year, but now getting the visuals, it's back in the top 10 Billboard chart, you know, so having them also to be able to share in this moment. But I think it is very clearly from the beginning, the first words that are spoken in this film are from a Black American man talking about how he, you know, wants to be a king, but doesn't know how to do that. And the rest of the film is essentially teaching him how to step into that kingship that is not about oppression or about finding people to dominate, but is about stewardship and being in community with other people. So that's what I took from it, that this was specifically for Black Americans who are descendants of enslaved people to connect with Africans and the continent and the diaspora as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with that, Brooke. Like when I finished watching it the second time, and then I saw the video of that 6-year-old girl just like bawling, being like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. And then I was like, what would life be like watching that as a 6-year-old, to see all of these incredible people, this film made, you know, by Beyonce for all of us, but then also an encouragement to find out our history, and that we're not taught when we're taught a very specific part of Black history growing up, and unless you're encouraged to, you know, go find out more, it's really difficult to. And I found after watching it the third time, I was like, well, now I'm inspired to go find out more about, you know, as much as I can about, you know, about everything. Like that's what I left it. Like I want to know more, and I want to find out more, and I want to educate myself, and I want other people to be educated, because we haven't had that. A lot of us haven't had the opportunity to do it. So I imagine that, especially because, you know, and then going back to the Lion King thing for a second, is that, you know, it's like a very abstract version of the Lion King. If you watch like Disney's Lion King when you were a kid, you're like, you know, very cartoon version. And I'm watching it, and by the time I got to the third time, I could like see the storyline more, but I didn't like, I knew it was about the Lion King, obviously, when I first watched it, but then watching it again, I was like, okay, I see like what's happening. But I thought it was really, you know, and there were some very like dark elements of it that I was like even scared of as a 30-something-year-old woman. I was like, whoa, like this is dark, especially like the Scar
yes.
section, like that whole thing. I was like, this is the darkest thing I've ever seen, you know, especially Beyonce do, because her work is not like that. So I like I loved that part so much. But you know, I think it's really just like an encouraging thing to like, we should be talking to each other and finding out more about our history, especially coming from enslaved people, that we can't get that so easily as other people can. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's you know, at first when I
Cam, you're a little muffled.
oh,
Can
my bad. Can
maybe
you hear me
something's
now?
blocking your mic?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, sorry, my notebook was on my laptop. That probably wasn't smart. Yeah, when I first like read that it was gonna be, you know, done with Disney, I like kind of forgot about that uh, Lion King album that she made, and
Mhm.
then I saw this, and I was like, oh, Disney, and like you know, my skeptic kicked in. I'm like, how black can it really be if it's with Disney? You know, like how far can it actually go? And
Yeah.
you know, I was like naturally kind of like apprehensive. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it is like Brooke said, Maya said, it's for black. I think it's very specifically for Black Americans for sure. I think yes, I think Black men will definitely take something different from it as well. And yeah, and I think I don't know, like I haven't learned a lot about the continent. Like I'm not super familiar with um, many of the cultures there. It's something I'm still learning. And, you know, today preparing for this, I had a moment where I was going through looking up some of the fashion influences and some of the, you know, things like the mask and the paint, like the ceremonies and rituals shown in there. And, you know, it's super dense and it goes really wide, you know, obviously like it should be because Africa is an incredibly vast continent. But yeah, I think that's really exciting in a way that I didn't even really think about at first, like when I first was going into it. I don't know if like I think I've seen people talk about like the reaction to this in like conversations with how Black Panther was received at first, and you know I think this does something very different to where it actually like obviously it's from a real like it's actually like rooted in reality more so I guess, but it's encouraged me to look into my roots in a way that that film did not, you know. It's a little less of the like Wakandification and more like the real, which is exciting.
On that point too, when I finished watching Black Panther, yeah, I felt like the message that Ryan Coogler was sending in Black Panther was that for one, we have to allow colonizers into our spaces. But also, if we want to win, we have to let them in. But also that, you know, Black Americans, we can't go home because the only Black American in that movie was Killmonger. And he was so broken and so, you know, distorted by all of the trauma that he had experienced as a Black American that there was no way for him to get back home and make a reconnection. In Black is King, I found a space where we could actually like see ourselves being a part of the continent, seeing the ways that we are similar, seeing the ways that things were actually passed down to us, this shared culture, shared memory, inherited victory. I felt very victorious after watching this in a way that I did not. So I thank you for bringing up Black Panther because that really did, you know, those are two Disney projects where one was very clearly Disney and, you know, had a very specific message that was like, let's tone down this Blackness, like, you know, and that just is not, it's not really there in Black is King, and I appreciated that. And on top of that, Beyonce kind of has a middle finger for Disney in Black is King because she uses the original artist, Solomon Linda's song, Mbube, instead of The Lion Sleeps Tonight. That was the one that Disney used. It was a stolen version of Solomon Linda's song. Solomon Linda's family actually had to go and sue Disney to get royalties because he wasn't even credited as the artist. behind that song, the creator of that song. And so by Beyonce using that song, it was essentially like a reclamation of things that were stolen from us. And so I found that just very empowering and very bold, considering what consequences there could be. And I don't know if Disney noticed or, you know, they were just like,
Yeah, there's no consequences for Beyonce.
Didn't think so, but yeah, I was very happy to see that for sure.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that I think is really interesting is the way that she marries the story of the Lion King. You guys have touched about it on it a little bit before, but there was also this article on Vulture written by Angelica Jade Bastian, who kind of goes through all these different eras of like Beyonce's career and kind of marks 2020 as the era of royalty after, you know, making herself into a matriarch, kind of, you know, creating herself as part of like an African goddesshood with her and her mother and her sisters, right? This like matriarchal lineage. And that this is like the era of royalty. I wanted to talk a little bit about that theme because it is obviously something that is running throughout this whole piece, not just because it's related to the Lion King, but because she's talking about a very specific kind of history that has been stolen from Africans and from African Americans. So how did you guys think about this storyline of royalty and rethinking of, you know, unfortunately, I feel like the way that, you know, pop culture has taken the phrases kings and queens is not the way that like Beyonce means it, right? But like, how is she, or how do you see her kind of trying to recuperate that status of kings and queens in this work?
Well, I mean, for one, I thought that this was kind of it was going to be a little Hotep-y. Honestly, I thought that she was going to be like, yes, Black man is king. You know, we all got to get in our places and get in line. Like that was kind of my fear going into it with that title. But I was so, you know, pleasantly surprised to see repeated throughout that kingship does not mean dominance. It does not mean oppression. It does not mean, you know, being over people or hoarding wealth or, you know, any of those kinds of things. That kingship, like there's a Black American man at the end of the film that actually summarizes what kingship is, and that it's about sacrifice, and that it's about community, and that it's about, you know, being a steward for other people. And so I think with that, I mean, she's had this imagery. She's been King Bey for a really long time, Queen Bee for a really long time. That's been her nickname. It's, you know, the nickname of the hive that support her. It's been around for years. So for her to specifically hear the criticism, I think, of that kind of royalty status that separates kings from everyday people, because honestly, most of us who are in America were probably not descendants of kings and queens. There weren't that many, you know. It's more likely that we're descendants of, you know, everyday working people. And so I was really glad, for one, that she used the Moses symbolism as well, because Moses was somebody who was born into slavery. He was born into slavery in Egypt. His mother put him in the basket, put him down the river in order to save his life. And he was taken into Pharaoh's palace by Pharaoh's daughter. And so he grew up in this completely different world than what he was born to. And so I think by her using the symbolism of Moses and Moses's birth mother, Jochebed, as well as playing Pharaoh's daughter in the beginning, she's like making the connection. Like there is no separation between enslaved people and people who have, you know, a higher class status. There should not be that separation. And that's not what kingship is about, you know? And so I think in kind of decolonizing that term, she's helping us to not need to attach ourselves or to feel any shame about being descendants of enslaved people, because that's not our shame. That's not our shame to bear. And that there's a pride in being a descendants of people who survived. and that there is so much more to our story, that it is a complete story, and that we're to not get caught up into class status and all those kinds of things, and to redefine it as something that is actually useful, not only to yourself, but to all the people that you're actually connected to in your community.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think just what we were talking about earlier with especially mood forever with that piece, and then as Black is King goes on, and we see like if it was like the Simba character like returning home to his community, is like we're all getting to this, we all could get to this place in our life where we're working hard and we're succeeding. And then I don't know the quote by heart, but it's that like beautiful Toni Morrison quote that she talks about, like when you get to a place in your life, like it's your duty to like bring people with you and like create your community. And I loved that so much in Black is King, of where, it's just that encouragement of like, we need to take care of each other. And no matter what level we get to, like if you're calling someone a king, or a queen or king, like it's your duty to take care of your people and make sure that they're okay. But we're not always taught to do that, like, because we get to a point in our life, specifically in America, where it's just like, I'm out for myself and I'm going to succeed on my own. But none of us succeed on our own. We succeed by our families, our communities, people that like keep us grounded and also encourage us. And then I feel like it's our duty to do that as well as we move on in life. I felt that really strongly, like throughout the whole film, like, even though he returns, and we talked about the wedding earlier, is like, going back to your roots, and this place that's like, this dream of excess and succeeding in life is nothing if you don't have people to share it with. And so I feel like it was just like a new message of what a king and a queen could be, especially to Black Americans.
Yeah. So I have, oh, go ahead, Cam.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I was just going to move on to an audience question. And this will be our last question before a very quick lightning round. I always like to end these with a lightning round. So this is a really good question, because obviously the production of Black is King was well before, this kind of like second wave of like Black Lives Matter protests and everything that's been happening like in the last few months, like during quarantine specifically. But when Beyonce posted about Black is King on social media, she tied it to George Floyd and the current climate of racial justice. And the question that we have here is, how do you personally see this film kind of fitting within this narrative of racial justice and this moment that we're in right now? Whoever wants to go first.
Okay, I'll just say, I think this is very clearly a call to action from Beyonce to, relieve ourselves of white supremacy as a whole. That's what these Black Lives Matter protests and these uprisings that have been happening all over the globe have been about. They've been about ending white supremacy in all of its forms. And so, that is something, as we're doing that, we have to also look at the ways that white supremacy has seeped into our subconscious, and the way that we behave with ourselves, and the way that we think about ourselves, and the way that we think about each other, and the way that we treat women and girls in our community. All of that is connected to colonization and white supremacy. And so as we are, like, this is joint work. This isn't something that we'll get free from, police brutality, and then we'll start working on misogynoir. Or then we'll start working on, all the other issues that, like, these are all happening at the same time. Like, this decolonization work is about looking at every single element and rethinking all the ways that we've been taught. Like, that's the point. We are colonized people. Our minds are colonized. They've been colonized. When we were born, that's all the messages that we've been receiving. So however old you are is however many years that you have been colonized with white supremacy. So it's going to require us to think about why do I like the way this person looks? What is it about this person or these elements that, like, I find attractive? Even down to what your attracted to. All that stuff has been colonized by white supremacy. So we have to rethink literally everything. And so that's why I appreciate what this work is actually calling us to do. And that's how I think it ties into the uprisings that we've been seeing.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brooke. Like I think you talked about it in your piece, and then just like the decolonizing, deconditioning of what you are as a Black man or woman or whatever you identify as is. And again, just speaking briefly on the dance body, that for the longest time in both concert dance and commercial dance, we've been told what a beautiful dancing body looks like, which is like very thin. Probably you change your hair to be blonde, you know, you do all these things to fit in. When I watched Black is King and just again saw all of these different bodies, I was like, this is what it should always be, is that everybody can dance, everybody can move, everybody can be, you know, whatever they want to be. But it made me feel that we have to, you know, I can say for myself that, you know, to be unapologetic in how I go about my life and to decondition myself into what I think is attractive and what I think a body should look like, because it was definitely ingrained in me, even as a younger dancer, what my body should be. And I tried to make that fit in so that I would get jobs. And then I was never happy when I was dancing because I literally tried to make myself like this big. My body does not do that. Like, I'm supposed to have hips and a butt and muscles, but like, I was not taught that until I stepped away from that and have realized that, you know, I don't want to watch the same type of dancer on screen. I don't want to watch the same type of actor, the same type of movies. I want to see like the whole entire world. And I feel like that's what she gave us, was this like, oh, it's not just Beyonce. I think it's also the movement too, that is giving us as Black Americans this okay to like use our voices, be like, this is who I am. I'm not going to apologize for it anymore or make myself smaller so that I can make you comfortable, and you being white America.
Yeah, all of that.
Ditto.
Yeah, like, also like I for me, there's, you know, there's a lot of thinking about songs like Find Your Way Back and Spirit, and the talk of the ancestors reaching out from inside you to hug you. And, you know, I think for me there, it was very, I think it makes very apparent that this moment is not, it's more, and it's more than a moment, you know, that this has been a long time coming. We've been in this moment for a very long time before any of us on this conversation were born. You know, this has been an ongoing thing, and has been built on the backs and through the spirits of many folks. And I think that for me, that was kind of the biggest takeaway for me, you know. And I think, yeah, I hate to call it a moment, because it does feel like it makes it so much smaller than it actually is, you know. This fight is a lifetime, you know, but I think we'll win. So.
Yeah. Awesome. You ready for the lightning round?
Yeah.
We're gonna start easy and then we're gonna ramp it up. Okay. This is just about Black is King. Very quickly, what is your favorite outfit?
Already, she's wearing and she has the Ankh hair. That is my favorite, the gold teeth.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, I can't pick one. It's literally every outfit in my power, like everything, every single thing in that whole entire, that and the water video. Like, those are my two fashion moment things that I gagged.
To be on a horse with a billowing pink silk dress.
Yeah, that's my everyday casual dream.
Yes, exactly. Just a Thursday.
That's how I go out.
Mine was definitely, I think it was in Find Your Way Back. I love like a good, just very sparkly, covered in diamonds.
Oh,
It up like like I love it when Michael Jackson did it. I love it when Young Thug did it. I love it when Solange did it. I love when Beyonce did it. Like it's all great. I think it's just such a beautiful thing to watch happen on screen too, when the light hits it. And yeah, so that was my favorite, like hands down.
Cool. Favorite song in Black is King?
It changed.
Go ahead.
Changing. I feel like already because of the video just made it like stand out so much more to me. But I just love Other Side. I've been listening to that since last year, kind of on repeat. So.
I loved Brown Skin Girl. Like that was really just, I love it. Like I feel like crying when I watch the video and listening to it. Is that, and again, My Power, like that is, I think that is my new like anthem, but it's between those two for me.
I think when her making Kelly blush, just like with her greatness, like that was such a sweet moment with them too. Sorry, Cam, go ahead.
No. That part makes me cry. Like, no, like I think that's my favorite part of the film. Favorite song is it's probably Find Your Way Back. I just really, really, really am enamored with that right now. And I like the Nile song too, just because like I'm a Kendrick stan, so it's easy.
Yeah. Favorite Beyonce moment, concerts, performances, great interviews that she's given.
Well, I mean, it's not the Beyonce Vogue, when she was on Vogue is my, like one of my favorite moments, like when she didn't do the interview and then they had, that was my favorite moment in print of hers, was just to have her have the entire, like, I almost said album, but the entire magazine. Like that was really important for me. Really, really cool.
Yeah. Pretty iconic September issue. Yeah.
Yes.
I feel like Lemonade was it was such a moment. I felt so seen, even though I have not, to my knowledge, been cheated on. I just felt like
I had.
experienced my life and like it's giving it back to me, and it's giving me a decolonization blueprint for how to get out of the white supremacist like version of Christianity that I was taught, like all of how to get out of these patriarchal relationships that I was having. I felt like, I don't know, I felt so seen. But then she did it again with Homecoming, because I went to an HBCU and I was just like, nobody's gonna understand it. Like she just did this for us. Like she did this in front of the whitest crowd in America who had no idea about HBCU culture, no idea about, all of these just things that are just so very specific to us. Like you have to be in this little niche to understand what she's doing. And like, I loved that. I really did. I stayed up to watch it live. I think it was 4 a.m. New York time when it came out. So yeah, that was a moment.
All right, Cam.
Yeah, man, I think off the top of my head, it has to be like the Formation Super Bowl performance, and seeing the kind of the reactions to that, to like all these white people that have just been suddenly realized that they were looking at a Black woman the whole time. And that was, I think it's just so, it was just so interesting to me to see people like flip out, freak out, and suddenly feel so uncomfortable that there's this like, there's this moment right here, right now, where they can't have access to Beyonce in this way that they want, I guess. And that they were scared, and so I think about that a lot, and just how, and that goes back to the question about audience, and how we as artists engage with them and how they consume us.
Yeah, that was like a pivotal moment in her career.
Yeah.
You know, because people have talked, like, this was not the first time that, like, Beyonce's blackness was apparent. Anyone who had been following her career. But it was definitely a moment where she chose to not care if she was alienating people with, like, the iconography that she was using and, like, the imagery that she was using. And, like, that to me was like, this is a new era, and it really, I think it was. Okay, last question. It's the hardest question. We don't have any say over this, but if we did, what movie should Beyonce reimagine next?
Oh gosh.
Ooh, that's a good one.
That is a good one.
Ooh.
She was supposed to do A Star is Born, and I feel like I'm tired of seeing that movie. It's been done a whole lot, but like I definitely think there could have been some better songs that Beyonce would have brought if she had been a part of this. I think for a musical, you have to have more than one good song. So, and she definitely, I feel like, would have given us, but I don't think we need to see another A Star is Born. I'm conflicted. I don't know. That's a hard one.
Okay.
Oh.
Anything. All the
really
a Muppet Christmas Carol.
Oh god.
Don't touch it. It's a classic.
Not even Beyonce can touch it.
Oh, it's perfect. We just leave it alone.
Oh gosh, I can't think of one right now. I'm gonna try and think really quick.
I would love to see her do something like a Star Wars situation. Like I would like to see her get fully in her like Afrofuturism bag and do a space opera. Like I think that would be super fire. I would love that.
A Beyonce space opera. I like it.
Somebody get the Mama team on the phone. Make it happen.
And
Maya, you got
Oh
the.
No, Maya.
Oh
you got
my God,
the
this is
On, so we got a great idea for her sister.
the sunrise is right there. It's right there. You know?
Oh my gosh. I watch so many movies and then I keep thinking, well, okay, one thing we didn't really talk about, I was going to bring it up earlier, but it's that Busby Berkeley moment in Mood Forever, like that iconic, which is usually done by, well, it was so long ago, but like all white bodies, and that was like really cool to see. So maybe something like that, like an old movie musical and like, but with Beyonce directing at the helm. Of course, I can't like think of one now, but yeah, that popped into my head. That I'm gonna have to think about that answer, and then I will individually message you and be like, this is my idea.
Yeah, like an old school Fred and Ginger, like her.
Yeah,
like,
her and someone else.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
Usher is the only. I feel like Usher is her only maybe like peer, but even though she's in her own lane. But I mean, as far as like vocally, like I feel like Usher would be a really good Fred to her Ginger.
You know which one popped in my head is well, I mean the movie's so good, but Funny Face with Audrey Hepburn and Fred Astaire, like taking that, and then what if she Beyonce-fied Funny Face in some way? I think that could be amazing. As like a fun Hollywood type thing, because we don't even get that type of dancing anymore in any way. So I think that was also the Busby Berkeley moment in Mood Forever. I was like, this is amazing, because that man was like incredible, like what he did with dance and sets and all of that. So I could see her maybe, that would be cool. I'd be inspiring to see.
Yeah. Man, you guys, she's gonna take all these ideas.
I hope.
Beyonce. Thank you all so much for joining me tonight, for talking about Black is King. You are all very brilliant. Follow Maya's career, follow Cam on Twitter and Instagram, follow Brooke on Twitter and Instagram, read her article on Black is King on Esquire.com. Thank you all so much for joining us. We will see you next time.
Thank you,
Thank
y'all.
you.
Great.